We're live. It's Sunday. Nobody's watching us right now because everybody is watching the Lions game. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself.
It takes a long time for that to
beat.
drop.
It is. That seems inordinately long for a beat to drop.
I think so
It feels
too.
like it's at least 3 seconds too long.
At least.
So, I don't know. Yes. All right. Well, I'm going to fade that out. Wait, is this fading out? Is it fading out?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't really fade out. It's just all of a sudden just kind of just drops out. You're like, boom, off it goes. So yeah, it's weird how that happens. Like, we're all done playing now. So hey everybody, what's going on?
Hi.
Hi everybody. For those of you that are not watching the game, here it is. It's the Brother Sisters, Smart Dumb Fun with the Brother Sisters. I am Janice Brothers.
And I am Ann Brothers.
Is Ann Brothers, but she's not really sitting next to me. She's like 70 miles away, but sitting next to me because we're using technology.
84 miles, actually. 84
Is it 84 miles? I was thinking it was closer to 75.
Nope, it's 84 miles. I know because I had to write it down a lot this summer. I was keeping track of my
your miles. 84 miles. Another 84 miles. There you
84
go.
miles.
Right. That's right. So when we have Kristen Britt on, she's a family lawyer, and we talk about estate planning. You're going to learn that you can give yourself mileage for when you're driving across the state to do your family's estate stuff. Who knew?
You sure the fuck can.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's so much stuff to learn. It is awesome.
Or is it? So yeah, it's okay. Oh yes. So here we are. It's very January today. It is January 21st. Well, the week of January 21st, and it got straight cold this week. So I had 3 days off this week because of the cold, and it's so funny because having worked in Minnesota and lived in northern Wisconsin, there are different definitions of cold in southern Michigan as opposed to northern Wisconsin / Minnesota, and it's much warmer here. It can be much warmer here to have a cold day. Where in Minnesota, it's air temperature of -20, wind chill -20, -25, somewhere in there, and it's not really the case here. It's a lot less. It can be a little bit warmer here, so I wasn't quite ready for that somehow, but it was okay. But it just felt like January. There's a lot of snow over here in KZoo, and it's cold and it's snowy, and it's just felt for the first time this year. It actually felt like winter, and I'm feeling a little bit. Winter has hurt my feelings. It betrayed me by becoming actual winter.
No, I feel the exact same way. People are like, oh, but it's been such a short winter. Every time somebody says that to me, I just want to punch them in their stupid face. I was like, I don't care. Short winter, long winter, it's winter. And you know what? It's only January. So, and technically winter doesn't start until the 21st-ish of December. So literally we're only a month into winter. So don't tell me how short the winter has been.
This rant has been brought to you by Ann Brothers.
The only reason, and my husband gets tired of me saying this, but the only reason I live in Michigan is because this is where my husband lives.
That's fair. Okay, so if you didn't live here, where would you live?
New Mexico. I would live in New Mexico.
Yeah, I've already picked out my spot. My spot is Silver City, New Mexico.
That is my spot too.
Yeah, it's my favorite city in New Mexico by far. And I almost don't want to talk about it because I don't want people to live there. But yeah, because I'm like, you can't live there because I'm going to live there.
That's where I live. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I would live too.
It's a great town. Have been enamored with that town since we stumbled across it. 30 years ago now? Almost, 30 years ago. Because we're 29 years ago is when we did the tour, which is when we stumbled across Silver City, New Mexico. So yeah, if you happen to be driving around southern New Mexico and you're like, what's this Silver City? We would encourage you to stop there and take in the local. It's just a neat town, a little mountain town in southern New Mexico. It's got a college, it's got some good restaurants, just amazing scenery. Silver City, New Mexico.
The Gila Cliff Dwellings.
Oh, we should do a show on the Gila Cliff Dwellings because that's just a really great place.
It is. It is. I mean, that's the first cliff dwellings I ever saw was that Gila National. It was a national monument. It's still just a national monument, right? It's not a national park.
Because it's still hard to get to. It's in the Mogollon Mountains area of southern New Mexico, and it's hard to get to. That's for sure.
Be careful of cows in the road. And I'm not exaggerating. That's not a euphemism. Sometimes there are cows. Road is also a very generous term.
It can be, and if you have a great big RV and you wanna get to Gila Cliff Dwellings National Monument, that's gonna be tight. There's some hairpins there that don't work for your giant vehicle.
Exactly.
Mm.
You're like, based on this road, it should only take an hour to get there. It's going to
Oh,
take you much longer.
it's amazing 'cause it's only from Silver City, it's only, like, 30 miles. It's not
Mhm.
far, but it is literally a 2-hour drive.
And that's if everything goes well.
Because all you do is this, just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, yeah, and you might
Ugh,
be doing I think your top speed on that road is, like, 30 miles an hour.
that's for very short distances.
Yeah, wow, oof, yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, you are watching the Brother Sisters Smart Dumb Fun, and today we are talking about Anne's Garden for 2024. Here we are, Anne and I just sat here and bitched about winter for the last 5 minutes, and yet we're gonna talk about your garden because what better way to, kind of put winter out of your mind and to start thinking ahead about the warm, sunny days of spring. It's funny. When I was younger, my favorite season was fall. And as I've gotten older, my favorite season is definitely spring. I love the month of May. I like May is actually my favorite color. It's my favorite color because it's the most beautiful shade of green. It's that
Mhm.
bright, happy, like brand new green, and it is just freaking gorgeous. And so May is my favorite month. May is my favorite color. I love the month of May. Yep. Oh, and I'm gonna stop you for a minute. We're gonna score check right
Mhm.
now. Okay, this is good. So right now we're at the 2-minute warning. It is still 31-23 Lions. Right now the Lions are first and 10 at the Tampa Bay 10-yard line. Let's go!
Come on. Put the
Let's
ball home.
Tampa Bay still has one timeout left.
Oh,
But the good
so
news
this
is
game
right
could go on
now.
another hour.
Well, the good news is you've got a couple of good things here. A, there's only one timeout left for Tampa Bay, and two, the Lions are within good field goal range. Just really want them to, you know, win them a football game. They don't need to pass the ball here. You need to just run the ball, not fumble
Mhm.
it, kick a field goal, game, because then that gives them what an 11-point lead, which would be amazing. So
Which would be amazing.
anyway, back to what we were Garden 2024. All right. So for
Mhm.
those of you that are just following the Brothers Sisters for the first time, and I'm guessing you might not be watching this live, you might pick us up on the Spotify or YouTube or a later broadcast to Facebook, which is great. But our brother sister synopsis, we are Anne and Janice brothers. We are sisters. We are Ashley sisters, same mother, same father, the whole deal. We are the brothers sisters. We just have a really fortunate name, really.
Mhm.
We are in our 50s, and that means that we had to watch our cartoons on Saturday mornings.
Mhm.
So good times. And that was like a safe haven. You got like what we got a solid 2 hours of cartoon watching.
I mean, I
Um,
used to get up early, early just so I could start watching cartoons as soon as they started at 6 AM.
Absolutely. Because and then mom and dad never really got up that early, so you had,
Mhm.
like, some blissful you time before the parents got up and started asking for things.
Exactly. So yeah, it was so there was no Cartoon Network. There was none of
Mm-mm.
that. It was like
Nope.
Saturday morning. I remember when sometimes Christmas would fall on Saturday, and so you get presents and cartoons.
Yeah, it was
It was
like
amazing.
Christmas. Oh, wait, it was
It was
Christmas,
Christmas. It was amazing. I'm like, they still show cartoons on Saturday, even if it's Christmas?
even if it's Christmas. What was your favorite?
Oh, you know what? It's so funny. What really I remember, like, especially the early, early morning cartoons was Underdog. Do you remember Underdog?
I do remember Underdog.
Because that was usually one of the first things that was on in the morning. And then of course the Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny, that whole thing. That was my most favorite. And they used to show those after school too, like between the 3 and 5 time. But yeah,
Yes,
it was like a whole hour of Looney Tunes. Man, Jenny and I learned many life lessons because of the Looney Tunes. And I think that
absolutely.
it's impossible to watch them now because they are so very wrong.
Wait a
But
second. Sorry, I'm gonna wait, what just happened? Detroit intercepted? Mayfield pass from the intent intercepted. Oh, you're right. Okay. All right. Okay. The Lions just didn't. They gave the ball back to the Buccaneers. Detroit just intercepted the ball. Sorry to interrupt you, and Joe just he ran in with an update. So
So did they score, or they gave it up without even scoring? They were on the 10-yard line and they didn't
I think
score?
I read that wrong. It was that Tampa Bay had the ball on the 10-yard line. So
Oh.
now the Lions have the ball back. Now Tampa Bay only has the one timeout. Let's go.
Okay. All right, very good.
Okay.
Anyway, so,
So
Underdog was I still
oh
remember
yeah.
Underdog and Looney
Hi.
Tunes.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. I've shooed my husband away. He's like, "Wait, are you
Okay.
guys on the air?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah,
Is it
go
after
away now.
6? That appearance was Joe Peters, super fan, Joe Peters, and regional manager Joseph Peters, regional manager for the Brother Sisters.
That's
Yes,
right.
that's right.
Middle management. Congratulations.
Yes, that's fantastic. Mine was I loved Looney Tunes, and it goes without saying, Looney Tunes was on a completely other level.
Mhm.
But my favorite pre Looney Tune one was Super Friends.
Oh,
So
yeah, I do remember Super Friends.
yeah, loved
Yes.
Super Friends. Yeah, I just thought they were really cool, and I liked the Wonder Twins, even though I never really understood why, turning into some form of water was a thing, I don't know. I'm like,
I don't know.
yeah,
I'd be like, "You can turn into water or have no power." All right, no power.
I'll take no power. I'm like, yes. I'm like,
Mhm.
it comes in handy when you can turn into a sheet of ice for, what? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, so I definitely liked Looney Tunes top the pile, and then of course maybe some occasional Super Friends I loved. As I got older and the Smurfs started to be a thing, I enjoyed the Smurfs. Everything
Mhm,
was totally Smurfy. So
mhm.
anyway, yeah, so here we go. Again, we are not cool or hip. We know this because women our age are never the heroes of a horror movie. That's a true statement, Ann Brothers. The
Yeah, I mean
closest thing,
mhm. Go ahead.
literally the closest thing you get to that is an older Jamie Lee Curtis in the Halloween
Mhm.
remakes, but that's
Yeah.
about it.
That's
Yeah.
about it. Usually, sometimes we get to be a backstory. Like, remember when those old ladies got killed in this haunted house? You never learn anything about them. Or sometimes we get to be the villains in the horror movies. It's like we get to be the witch, the wicked witch. But in general, nobody, we're not sexy, hip, or cool
Mm,
enough to be
no,
the heroine in a
nope.
horror movie.
It is. That's a shame. It
Hmm.
is. The closest you get maybe is Ripley in Alien, but she's,
Yeah.
far from her 50s in that movie. So,
Oh, yeah. No, she's far from her 50s, and a lot of people would
yeah.
argue that that's not really a horror movie, though it is my favorite horror movie.
Oh,
Um,
Alien's totally a horror movie. Are you
yeah,
kidding?
well, that scared the hell out of me. I lost weight watching that movie. Oof.
Totally. Oh, update.
Mhm.
Lions are on their way to the NFC Championship game. They won 31-23. The game is over.
Oof.
Sigh, and all of Michigan is gonna get drunk now. Woohoo!
Exactly.
If they weren't drunk already, now they totally getting
They're
drunk,
gonna
so
totally get drunk. Exactly. You know what?
totally.
Everybody's going into work late tomorrow.
Boy, that's for sure. I know, it was so funny last week because the Lions had the late game, uh, and we got, a day off because it was cold, and so they called it the day before, so everybody was super excited, so they got to stay up super late for the football game. I'm like, nicely
Hmm.
done."
Mhm, mhm.
All right. What else about the Brother Sisters? Okay, we are not sexy. See number 5. We are not a murder or a celebrity podcast. We're just not that cool. We've been told by Ann's friend Dawn that we are good to listen to while you drive to work. That's right. You're like, I
Mhm.
gotta go to work. I hate my job, and now I don't have to. I can enjoy this nice, mellow podcast on my way to work. Good job, Dawn. Thanks for shouting us out. Oh, you had cheeseburgers with Dawn this week, didn't you?
We did. Yes, we had cheeseburgers. And that was nice because I love cheeseburgers. And we go to this little divey bar, local bar in Grass Lake, Michigan called Missy's Little Grass Hut. They make the burgers right behind the counter, fresh meat.
Mm.
Oh my God, they're so good, Jenny Brothers. I love them. That's my favorite place to get cheeseburgers right now.
All right, throw that name out there again for anybody that happens to be listening.
Missy's Little Grass Hut, and that's in Grass Lake, Michigan. It's kind of in between Chelsea and Jackson.
Okay, so if you happen to be on the road there, and you're passing by Grass Lake, stop in at Missy's Little Grass Hut and get you a cheeseburger. Don't they serve High Life there in the bottle?
Yeah, Duncan and I always get cheeseburgers and Miller High Life in the bottle because it's
There
the
you go.
champagne of beers.
That's right. And it's the champagne and beers, and it goes really well with cheeseburgers.
It
That's all I know.
does.
That's all I
Mhm,
have to know.
mhm.
You should also know that this podcast is not rated G, PG, or PG-13. Sometimes we say words that are bad, or we say things that may make people uncomfortable. Sorry, but
No,
we're just keeping it real. We're just telling it like it is. We're truth tellers. We're heroes. Whatever.
Indeed,
Yep.
etc.
It's exactly. You can find us on our website, Spotify, the YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can like us, subscribe us, tell your friends, or if you hate us, tell your enemies. Either way, so much winning. Okay, good. All right, well, let's get to it, Ann. We got a ton of stuff to talk about, but before we do that, let's talk about our smart, dumb, and fun stuff. I'm going to start with you, Ann Brothers. What is something smart, dumb, or fun that you experienced this week?
Okay, so mine was a dumb fun thing. The 1994 film The Crow starring Brandon Lee is on Amazon Prime right now, and I was mildly obsessed with that movie in 1994. I saw it like 2 or 3 times in the theater. I had it on VHS. It is slightly cringeworthy, but you can see how it was filmed in that time before green screens, but when computer animation was just getting started in film. And it's actually based on a comic book. So they worked really hard to make the setting of this film, which is never says specifically, but you get the indication that it's set in Detroit. And so they do a really good job of making it this kind of um, comic book sort of setting, and they did a really beautiful job with it. If you're into grunge music, they have an excellent soundtrack. Some of the writing is not the strong point. It's a visual movie. The visual aspect of this movie is beautiful. It's got a little kind of a little cult thing going. The star, Brandon Lee, was actually killed on the set while it was being filmed. He was accidentally shot with a prop gun. So, that kind of led to this mystique of this film. They ended up making 2 or 3 more. I never saw any of them, but you can see the influence that this movie had on things like other. Comic book movies, other kind of horror movies like Constantine with Keanu Reeves, or was it Interview with a Vampire? There's a number of movies. Oh, even From Dusk Till Dawn, which is a Quentin Tarantino movie. You can see its influence in movies in the mid to late 90s and even into the 2000s. So, I say it's dumb because it's not a brilliantly written movie, but it was fun to watch it again and to remember what and to see how well it stood up. And it really has stood up well, and you can see its influence in even movies today. So that's what I did. It was
Nice.
fun. It was, part of my prime, and I was like, I'm going to watch that again because I haven't seen it in like 20 years. So there you go.
Well, and it's been 30 it's this is the 30-year anniversary of the release of that movie, which is
Mhm.
again a little gut punchy, but what are you gonna do? For me, my dumb thing, I don't even know if it's dumb or not. I just, I stumbled across the fact that Northern Exposure, which is a show that I really enjoyed in the late 80s and early 90s, has been finally released on Prime. It's been years. People have been wondering if this show would ever stream. It's finally streaming on Prime, all 6 seasons of it. And so I watch it when I go down into my little gym in the basement, and it's what I have playing when I'm doing my workouts and stuff. And I got to tell you, it's still pretty good. It's really funny what the attitudes and ideas of the late 80s and early 90s. So there's definitely some cringe-worthy moments. The attitudes of the white people towards the natives, the native culture, a lot of whitewashing going on. And it's interesting. You have this story that's basically told by the perspective of all the white people in it. Um, Yeah, it's alright. It's good. It's still enjoyable. There's a lot of stuff. I would say it was kind of a groundbreaking show in that it was, it was it did cover some ground and some topics that maybe a lot of shows weren't doing at the time. It was a little bit out there. The writing was a little bit different. There's a little bit of you know, spiritual aspect to it, which is kind of fun. Um, it definitely gives you some wrong ideas about Alaska, that's for sure. If you
Oh boy.
It's very sanitized. I'm like, "Alaska's the nicest place. I wanna go live in Alaska," where that's not really the case. There's a lot of, dark parts of Alaska if you happen to be watching the new season of True Detective on HBO, which also takes place in Alaska. I would say that's probably a more accurate version of what Alaska is really like and what it's like to live up north in the dark, in the cold. Anyway,
Mm,
so yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's kind of fun to go back. I really dislike Joel's character. He really is an asshole. The guy that because he's basically the protagonist in the show, and it's nice because as the seasons go on, they kind of move away from him a little bit. He's still very much part of the story, but they start to explore the other characters, which is nice because he's really not a nice person, and he's super annoying. So it's kind of nice that they start digging into the other characters and the community around him more, which is a good break.
mhm. Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah. So yeah. The time is now, and to think
Mhm,
about your summer garden, which
mhm,
seems weird because it's January.
mhm,
So I'm going to throw some questions at you, Ann Brothers, and I
mhm.
would like you to answer those questions. So tell me how this all starts. If because like I said, I'm an amateur gardener. At best, I'm amateur. So how do I start?
Well, usually how what gets me going is like at the end of December, I start getting all my seed catalogs because I do order. I have places where I don't order a ton of seeds from a lot of places, but once you order seeds from one place, you're going to get the catalogs from every place. So I get like 15 different catalogs. So those start coming in. I start piling them up after the holidays. I take them all out and I just look through all the pages and everything's so green and beautiful. So that's how I get started. I just get started right there, like getting ideas, looking around. That's where I start.
That's awesome. We got Jen Hesse with us. Jen Hesse is also watching Northern Exposure, and she is correct. Great minds think alike. And yeah, I will continue to watch it. A, it's great to watch when you're on the treadmill, and B, there's like there's a ton of episodes because the first couple seasons are only 8 episodes, and then you jump to like 20 episodes in seasons 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So, and let's talk about your favorite catalogs. Is there anyone in particular that you love more than any?
Yes, my favorite catalog is Seed Saver Exchange, which is out of Decorah, Iowa. That's my most favorite one. They do a lot of heirloom seeds, which are fun. And it's funny because they really encourage you to save your seeds so that you're planting from your same seeds or planting from plants that you've already grown. And so it's funny because I order very few seeds anymore because most of the seeds I save from the season before. So but that's when I do order. In fact, I just ordered a few things. I ordered a bunch of marigolds. I'm trying to do some keeping some critters out of my gardens, and marigolds is a good way to do that. That it's a very strong smelling plant, and a lot of like rabbits and deer don't like it. So planting them in your garden can really help.
Sure.
I like what is it, Prairie Moon, which is a they do native plants and they're out of Minnesota. And so I've been getting their seed packets for wildflowers. They have a very nice selection of wildflowers. There's a couple other ones that I like. If you go to the next slide, it shows you some of my other ones that I have ordered from in the past. And Jenny, if you can go to the next slide.
Sure, I'm on it.
Mhm.
Oops,
So,
sorry.
mhm.
Okay.
Burpee is a good one. That one's been around for years. It's out of Pennsylvania. They have lots and lots and lots of different vegetables. That's their big thing is vegetables. Johnny's seeds selection is another one and that's out of Maine. So like the Pennsylvania, Maine, and then Jung, which is out of Wisconsin. Those are nice ones usually for Michigan growers because they're also cold weather states. So they have a very similar kind of profile as Michigan. So those are usually pretty good ones to start with. There's also the Garden Supply Company, which isn't a seed place, but it's one of those catalogs that has all this like fun and fancy garden supply stuff that you don't need, but it's so fun and cool that sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to look through this because it's ridiculous. There's for every hobby, there's a ridiculous amount of accoutrements that can go with it, and you can spend a freaking fortune on it. And Garden Supply Company is a fun one for that. So, Seed
So
Saver Exchange and Prairie Moon are the ones I focus with.
so as a garden nerd, Anne, is that like your JCPenney Christmas catalog of garden nerd stuff?
It is, and so the stuff, Jenny, is so expensive and so ridiculous. You're like,
Uh-huh.
if I had like a tiny patio garden, it would all be from Garden Supply Company, because I'd just be, but it's a lot of fun. So,
I love that. That's
mhm,
amazing. Yeah, and that's That's the one thing about gardening. It's like, yeah, like you said, if you have a hobby, there's a place to buy expensive shit. So there you go.
Mhm.
All right. So let's talk about your process. So now, and
Okay.
I went through and I busted up a bunch of your slides and to make them
Mhm.
bigger. So let's talk about your process. Here we go. Your process.
Okay, so I like to come up with a plan because it's just how my brain works. And what I do is I break it up into month, and I have to put in parentheses, big parentheses, that this is all weather dependent. I mean, you might have a January that's super mild where you can get more stuff done than you will, and then you might have a March where you can't get anything done. So you really have to be flexible with this. January, I always renew my Seed Saver Exchange membership. You don't have to be a member to order their seeds, but I think it's an
I'm not, and I
important
did.
I think it's an important thing to have. And Duncan and I have actually been to their farm and toured their farm. So I was just trying to keep my membership up. Start your garden plan. I always, I'm going to turn around. Um,
Man, it's turning around if you cannot see this
and kind of
because you're
exactly.
listening to the
So
podcast.
this is I have my board of ideas. And then I actually have like my garden beds all mapped out. So what I'm going to do this year, like what I'm planting, what vegetables I'm planting, what beans I'm planting, what beds are fallow. So I plan that all out, and it's like I make my list, and I keep this in my bathroom because it's a place where I am every day. And I'm like, I get out of the shower, and like, oh, there's my garden plan. So it's always reminding me like what I need to be doing. And like January and February, pretty slow months for your gardening. Like I said, I renew my Seed Saver membership. I start my garden plan. I order seeds, especially from Seed Saver. You have to order them in January. Otherwise, what you want will be gone. So, like some things like Burpee or Johnny's, you probably don't have to worry about it too much. But if you're going with a small, very small, a seed place, you have to be right on top of this because if there's going to be something you want, it's very possible you won't get it. I Now this in January, we're having a warm up next week. I may be able to get out and do some weeding and do some covering in my septic field. I'm trying to put a wildflower garden in my septic field area, so I have a bunch of cardboard boxes. I hope to lay down next week. We'll see. I have some weeding to do in my very front flower garden. Again, we'll see. We'll see if the soil's still too frozen. I won't be able to do it. So it's just something that's in the back of my head. I do want to get some more chickens this year. So I have a place where I order them, and they will order the chicken sex that you want, so you can get just females. You have to pay more, but it's totally worth it. So you don't buy 6 chickens and end up with 4 roosters.
Ooh.
So anyway, I'll order
How
my
many chickens do you have right now?
I have 7. I have 7.
Okay.
2 I have one that's definitely not laying. She is 7 years old, and she stopped laying a couple of years ago. And because I'm not a true farmer, I keep all my chickens, and I don't put them in a pot because, hey, Crystal's lived a long time.
Hey, Crystal's in charge of that hen house, man.
She is. She's totally in charge. So I'll order my next round of chickens. Again, depending on the weather, I'll weed. I'll put my cardboard down if I didn't get to do it in January. So some of these things you'll notice move from month to month just depending on the weather. So that's basically where I start. March, April, and May, before you can plant, you have to prep. So I want to make sure that my vegetable beds and my flower parts are prepped. And what I mean is that I'm weeding them and I'm spreading compost in them. So that will get done as early as I can. I'll continue to weed my front garden. I have a
So
side
I'm going to
garden.
interrupt you,
Mhm.
interrupt you real quick. When you say as early as you can, is there still snow on the beds? Is it clear? What's your
Mhm.
definition of as early as you can?
As early as you can means your beds are clear, there's no snow, and the ground isn't frozen.
Okay. So then you're
So,
going to need a few days or so of
mhm.
above temperatures above freezing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And a
Gotcha.
lot of, it's like I will sit outside and weed and do this stuff like as low as 40 degrees. Anything lower than 40 degrees is pretty uncomfortable.
It's
And I
cold.
exactly. I was like, do you want to sit in the cold mud and weed? No. So for me, it has to be at least 40. But for some people, it's got to be in the 50s or 60s, which I appreciate. I'm My front garden. Jenny knows this. When I talk about my front garden, it's in the front of the house, and it's a whole section of that where I pulled up the sod and I put in a pollinator garden. So that is complete. The pollinator garden is in. I have a side part of my side front yard that I am in the process of doing that with right now. So hopefully in the next couple of years, my entire front yard will be pollinator garden and I won't have any grass in it.
So when you took out your sod, did you kill the sod? Did you dig it out? Did you rototill it? What did you do to it?
I dug it out. I don't really rototill very much because it gives you a quick burst of fertilization where the soil is really rich and then the soil dies out more quickly because you've killed most of the microbes and the earthworms and all the other stuff that's in there. So I actually pulled up the sod and I'm doing that on both the front and the side garden. Now in my septic field, I don't want to dig into that sod. So I'm actually laying down cardboard to kill the sod. So that's a much slower process and that's fine. But with the front garden, I wanted to get more, I wanted to start putting in flower seeds as soon as possible. So it was tedious. And I got to say, when I had that 3 months off for COVID, I got a lot done. I got it all done.
You became the gardenator.
I bet you the God. Sometimes I'm sorry, I didn't finish my list there, Jen.
Oh, sorry. Got you.
No, that's okay. In March, April, May, depending on how much compost I get moved, I'll remove compost from the chicken run and put it into my compost bins. Chicken compost is hot. Chicken poo is considered hot. It's got a lot of nitrogen in it. So you don't want to put it on your garden right away. You need to give it a year to cool before you start introducing it to places where you're going to put plants. Otherwise, your plants won't grow very well. It will burn them, quote unquote.
Is there a reason for that? Is there a reason why that happens?
No, it's just got a lot of nitrogen in it. Chickens are like us. They are omnivores. They eat everything. And it just means that your waste has a lot more going on in it. You know, if you have like cow manure, that's like the perfect compost. So yeah,
They got nice cold poo.
They got nice cold poo. So I'll check I have a couple fruit trees in the back, my other trees. I'll check and see how they're doing. I put out my lawn and porch decor because I have a lot of crap that I like to put outside. I'll replace soil in some of my herb pots. You know, they might need a new soil. Buy asparagus starts. I'm not going to do that this year. I did it last year, so I have 3 asparagus beds now. If you're going to start an asparagus bed, you have to put it in, and then you don't get asparagus from it. You don't start picking from it for 2 years. So I have 2 that are producing really well, and then another one. This will be its 2nd year this year, and then next year I'll be able to harvest from it.
Asparagus.
And, you know, the nice thing about asparagus too is it literally is a weed here in Michigan. So once you get your bed, established, it takes care of itself. It's really nice.
Good job, asparagus.
Yeah. In April, I like to set my hummingbird feeders out, and I usually do it way too early. But I like it to be there for them. I'll get my chicks set up. So I'll get my chicks. I'll pick up my chicks. I'll get a setup, and I set up in my enclosed breezeway. I have heat lamps. We'll talk about chickens more when I get them, but I have a big tub for them and heat lamps. So that'll be all set and ready to go before I bring the chicks home because it has to be warm enough.
So when you say pick up chicks, that's not a euphemism.
It is not a euphemism. I will be picking them up, little tiny baby. You get them when they're about 2 to 3 days old. So you have to bring them home and put them someplace warm immediately. And when I mean warm, it's usually about 100 to 110 degrees that you want to keep that. And then you lower the temperature about 5 degrees as per week. So
that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Little chickies. They are cute little fuzzballs, and they get ugly so fast.
They get ugly real fast.
But then they turn into beautiful chickens.
Beautiful chickens. So Memorial Day, I like to go and I like to buy my, before Memorial Day, I put in all my seeds. So you need to let the soil warm up a little bit. So about mid-May, often it's warm enough for you to at least put your seeds in the ground. And then the week before Memorial Day, I move my house plants outside. You don't really want to do it much earlier in Michigan because it's not we get freezes on Memorial Day. So, I am taking a little bit of a risk there, but I got a lot of house plants. So
I have a banana plant.
Huh? Do you want one?
You still have your banana tree?
Yeah, I have 2 of them. Do you want one?
Okay. No. Thank you.
Let's see. Memorial Day and Memorial Weekend. This is when I buy my starts. So stuff that's already started. And I usually buy starts for tomatoes. It's just easier. Tomatoes are remarkably finicky little bitches, and it's the only plant I grow that's a pain in the ass. So tomatoes can be a pain in the ass. So I just get them as starts. Same with jalapenos, cucumbers, Gerber daisies. I had a lot of good luck with that last year, but I'm not sure I'm going to do it this year. A lot of my herbs, lemongrass, lemon verbena, scented geranium, rosemary, all that sort of stuff. I usually buy those as starts and just put them in pots. So
Do you ever do Anaheim chilies?
they do not do well in Michigan. We don't
Mm,
have enough or long enough growing season.
makes sense. That's why
Mhm.
that's why if you want a really good Anaheim, you got to go to New Mexico to get it. So
Yeah, you really do. I've tried it a bunch of times and I'll get them, I'll get a few, but we usually have freezes before they can really get going.
yeah, because the harvest season for those is late August. You don't start to see the vendors come up to Denver until September. So yeah,
Right, and
I get
that's
it.
total, and New Mexico, where most of this is grown, I mean, they're starting them in, like, April, and in Michigan, we can't start them until May or June, so they've got 2 months on us, so
Oof. Yeah,
mhm.
yeah. It's warmer
So,
down there. So
it
much
is
warmer
warmer
this
down
time of
there.
year.
So once I
And
have
they get
my
just more sun.
yeah, though that's exactly it, they get a lot more sun. Um, so by the end of May, my garden is established. So then I can kind of move to this, I do a lot of weeding until everything gets crowded in. And then, so mostly May or June and July, I'm going to be removing turf from my side and front garden. My front garden's all set, but I'll still be moving it from my side garden. I'll also be moving my chicks from their indoor enclosure into an outdoor enclosure in the run. So I will start to introduce them to my other chickens.
So, what do you do in terms of watering your garden? How do you is it do you just do entirely hose hookup? How do you what do you do with that?
Well, um, my flower beds, I do not water. That's the nice thing about doing wildflowers, especially native wildflowers, is that they're adapted to the water we get and the water we don't get. So I don't water any of my wildflower gardens. And I sparingly water my vegetables. The only ones I'll water a little more often are the tomatoes because they're finicky bitches.
Yeah, fussy.
Everything else, you want it to get a nice deep root system. And if I know we're not going to get a bunch of water, I have these aqua spikes that I set up, and I will use. I have rain barrels. I will do that, but not as much as I used to. I used to do it a lot more, but I've just kind of like, hey, you gotta grow in this setting, and if you can't grow in this setting, then I got to figure out what's going to grow in this setting based on the water we get. So the only ones that are usually baby are tomatoes. And sometimes my flower pot, like if I have little flower pots, I'll water those every other day because it just, that's an unnatural environment for them. But everything else, I leave it more to itself. I'm like, if you can't grow here, we got to figure out what will grow here. So
You can't grow here. You can't grow here.
exactly. And Michigan's got a pretty good environment for growing plants. Um, yeah, you
It's
gotta keep an
steamy in
eye
the
on the weather.
summertime. So
Yeah, you gotta
yeah,
keep an eye on the weather and go from there.
cool.
Mhm. August and September, of course, are harvest. Again, I'm continuing to remove sod. It's a very labor intensive job, and man, if you can do a couple rows, you're like, I'm done. And like, I can do this for 1 hour, and then I got to stop. You're dirty. You got dirt down every part of you, and you're like, oh, I have cracks and crevices that are got. Oh, look, I can grow some tomatoes here. So anyway, yeah, so that's why I keep adding it because it's a very slow process. You're harvesting. Your tomatoes are coming in, your zucchini is coming in, I let my beans stay out until they dry. So I don't harvest my beans until like September, October. But yeah, all the good squash is starting to come in. Of course, you got strawberries in May and June. So
You say
asparagus
early,
is
yeah.
one of the early ones. Asparagus is like May and June. So there you
Do
go.
you plant rhubarb?
I
Because
have a
rhubarb's
rhubarb
pretty early
pot.
too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very early. I have a big pot with rhubarb in it. You gotta be careful with rhubarb because if you put a plant of rhubarb in somewhere, that's all you will have is rhubarb. So it's like
I
mint.
uh I read a meme last year that that just said friends don't let friends plant rhubarb.
Exactly. It's like it's in a big pot. It can't spread. Yeah, because that stuff will take. I'm like, oh, I'd like to just plant one thing. I'm like, rhubarb. You'll never have to do it again.
Rhubarb wants to live. It wants to live.
Just and again, it's like asparagus. You can find wild
Mhm.
rhubarb all over Michigan. So
Sure.
yeah,
That's cool.
practically a weed. Um, October, and this is like late October, you want it just before it freezes. This is when you plant your garlic and you sow wildflower seeds. This is also a good time to clean out raised beds and clean out flower pots, just, pulling out the last of the weeds, making sure, it's cleaned out. So you have to do less in the spring. But yeah, you don't want to plant your garlic or sow your wild seeds until you get really close to a frost. Otherwise, it'll start to germinate.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Mhm.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
all new to me. That's all new.
Yeah.
All right, so question for you.
Mhm.
And you kind of have talked about your beds, and we had some pictures of your beds earlier. So what's with the raised beds?
I like raised beds because it lets you have a little more control over your soil. And I have a lawn with very good soil in it, but it's not unusual, especially in this part of the state. I live in the south east part of the state, to have very clay based soil, which is not great for planting vegetables and sort of thing. It it doesn't allow water, or it either holds on to water too much or doesn't let enough water in. So, and also I like these raised beds because they're small, and it's just me doing this. So it helps me to like keep everything weeded without having to do as much work. I'm not walking on the plants or walking or compacting the soil. I can just go all the way around the bed. So it makes it much easier.
So we are the picture that we're looking at right now are these are actually your beds.
Mhm.
And so talk to me about what you need to build, in this case, a cinder. Now, why did you choose cinder block instead of wood? Because you
I
can use, like
chose. Oh.
you said earlier that you can basically use any material,
Mhm.
any material you want to make a
Mhm.
raised bed. So why cinder block?
I use cinder block, one, because it's not very expensive. Two, they're very durable. Three, as the ground shifts, I can reshift the cinder blocks. So they're not like constructed together. They're not like hammered or nailed together, anything like that. So they gave me the most flexibility. And in order to make a 3 foot by 6 foot raised bed, you need 16 cinder blocks, 16 by 8 by 6, with enough compost to form a thin layer, about 480 pounds of soil and some newsprint, and that's per bed. And you can have as many beds as you want, as few beds as you want. So that's what I did. You can, if you just want to have like two or three beds, you can grow a lot of vegetables in that. You don't need to have dozens of beds. Just a couple will give you a ton of produce.
Which is awesome. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
actually made one of these beds. I wanted to see what it was all about, so I made one when we were living in Wisconsin. And yeah, it only took me a couple hours in an
Mhm.
afternoon. Betty helped me by
Mhm.
watching me put the bed together. And yeah, it was just it was not, the hardest thing is just unloading the cinder block from the trunk of your, of your Toyota. So,
Mhm. Yeah, that's exactly it.
yeah.
You want to place the newspaper. The newspaper is to help kill the sod underneath. It doesn't poke through as easily. Then you lay your bricks out while you're trying to, onto the newspaper while it's trying to blow away. So that can be a little tricky. Then you put your compost down, and then the first 400 pounds of soil, and then the last 80 pounds of soil will go into each of the holes. And that's where I put garlic when I'm growing garlic, or if I'm putting in marigolds, I put the marigolds in there.
Well, what's the benefit of having marigolds? Just
They are,
asking.
there's a lot of organisms that don't like marigolds, like rabbits and deer. So if they smell that, they will often avoid the bed where they find them because they'll have to go through it to get to it. So, and it's pretty. So, and then it's a great, I'll use the heads of the marigolds. I'll use it as part of my bedding for my chickens because it helps prevent mold and mildew buildup.
See, the things you learn from your sister who's a gardener and reads all of the books about gardening. Marigolds, people. It's a magical flower.
It's a
So,
magical,
there you
magical
go.
flower, isn't it? And, it's like Jenny said, you do what you find the easiest, and this was just the easiest for me, and when we moved onto this property, this house that we have, I bought a yard, a sunny yard, and this house came with it. So, the first summer we were here is all we did was build beds. I didn't grow anything that first year. We just built beds. So I have quite a few of them because
What's your
it's a
total now?
nice
What are you up to?
23. That's
That's
probably my
impressive.
max. So it's you got to maintain them and stuff, but it's a lot easier. It's something that's easier for me. I'm not saying this is the way you should go. I'm just saying this is what's worked the best for me. And
That's
this
cool.
is yeah, so
Now, in this picture right here, I'm noticing that you have some chicken wire that you looks like you have some wooden either some wooden stakes or some
mhm.
PVC pipe or something, and you got some chicken wire around that. Uh, and why is that?
Well, chickens love to eat new things. They're like, "Ooh, fresh,
Mm.
delicious things." So, and I don't the onions, I could have taken this down because once the onions establish themselves, nothing will eat them. Nobody likes to eat onions. So they're pretty, it's like I could have totally taken those fences down. But early on, I like to let my chickens run around the yard if I am there in the garden. And so, and they like to be in the beds with me. So if I'm cleaning out a bed, they adore that. So they think that the beds are a great place to feed. Once I have plants first starting to come up, I do not want the chickens in there because they will dig it up.
They'll eat it all.
They'll
They
eat
will
it
eat it
all.
all.
It will take them literally 15 minutes to decimate a bed. So while it's still young, I will keep it fenced, and then some things are fenced because I don't want the deer to get to them. So it just depends. So yeah,
Cool.
some things,
That's
like I said, onions, you don't need to fence very long. They're like, "Ooh, this tastes terrible."
and yet here we all love them. So there you go.
There you
They're
go.
very good caramelized. That's all I know.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. So how much is this going to cost me?
It'll cost you about $40 a bed if you have your own compost bins, which I do. It'll cost you about $60 if you have to do your own compost. And you may be thinking, oh, that's really expensive. I'm not exaggerating. You can spend thousands of dollars on a bed, and that doesn't even include your soil.
So where okay, so when you buy soil for these beds, where are you getting your soil?
Okay, I'm lazy. I buy 40-pound bags.
Okay.
You can, contact a nursery. They will have a big, I'm not exaggerating, have a big dump truck full of soil and just dump it on your lawn and you can move it as you will. My friend Dawn did that. And unfortunately, she got a really heavy, it was had a lot of like pea gravel and like gravel sized stones in it. It's taken her a number of years to like get that soil where she wanted it, and it was not inexpensive. So usually, and I don't buy potting soil, I buy topsoil. So I buy the cheapest bags you can get, and it's usually pretty good, especially if I'm adding my own compost. No problem. So
Sure. Okay.
it gives you the nice thing about the garden beds is then it gives you this nice deep soil base. So
Cool. All
mhm,
right. So yes, now, like you said, you can use any material you want to make a raised bed. Because when you look on the interwebs, there's all kinds of different raised
mhm,
beds. You are the first person I've ever seen use cinder block, but I see wood ones all the time. I see people that use like metal tubs, sort of
mhm,
thing. I was looking at something where somebody had taken a kiddie pool and
mhm,
cut out the bottom of it, and they were using that as their raised bed.
mhm.
So
I've seen people that use tractor tires as their raised beds.
nice.
Yeah, it is. What can you fill with dirt
And grow stuff in it.
and
Go.
grow stuff in it? Yeah, exactly. Boom, go. So,
Nice. Yeah.
mhm.
I love this one because 'cause it's got pretty flowers in it. Look how
Yeah, that's
pretty.
mostly nasturtiums and zinnias. Actually, that bed now is becoming. I started to establish black-eyed Susans in it 2
Oh,
years ago, and they're finally
nice.
starting to really take over. And black-eyed Susans are a perennial, so they come back every year, so I don't have to do anything. And they're very they attract lots of bugs and birds. So,
Oh, yay.
mhm.
Pollinators, yo.
Yo,
Uh, yeah, and again, one of the benefits of, raised beds is that, if you don't have the best soil and Michigan does not have the best soil. We have a lot of sand, a lot of sandy
mhm.
soil. We're
Yeah.
not like those great less regions of Iowa or Kansas or,
Mhm.
what is that? Western Missouri. So we're
Mhm.
not cool like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it can be hinky. This is
yeah,
another, this was my very first Black Eyed Susan, bed, so I have 2 of them now, and there's
nice.
a little, milkweed poking out of there. Once you put in some milkweed, they will go wherever they want. So if you don't want them someplace, pull them out quickly because they will take over.
Again, friends don't let friends plant milkweed.
Well, unless you want a bunch of monarchs. So I do have a lot of
So
milkweed in my front beds, but I try to keep it out of my back beds.
okay. Yeah, because I've encountered your milkweeds in the front and they look
Mhm.
awesome.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
okay, so you had mentioned that you have 7 chickens, and what kind of
Mhm.
chickens do you have?
I have 2 silver Wyandottes and a gold Wyandotte, and then I have 2 buff Orpingtons, and then I have 2 sex linked, which are actually they're black sex linked, and they're actually a cross between the New Hampshire Reds and the Barred Rocks. The sex links were an accident. I ordered black Australops last year. I did not get any.
Sorry.
'Cause
Look how
sometimes it's
pretty they
hard to
are.
tell the chickens apart. That's the black Australorp. I'm gonna try to order them again this year, but instead I got the sex linked, which are a very nice bird. They're a good bird. They're good layers. Both of my Pansy and Petunia, they're both chickens with ideas, and chickens with ideas get eaten. So I'm kind of surprised they're still around because they'll like liberate themselves, like we've released ourselves on our own recognizance, from the run. And I'll come home and they'll be wandering around like, you guys are gonna get eaten. They're like, yeah, okay.
Probably, it's fine. It's all
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, so I'm
That's
gonna try to
awesome.
get black Australops this year, which are a dual purpose bird, means they eat. They're both, you can use them both as meat birds or egg birds. They weigh about 5 to 7 pounds. They have excellent egg production, 250 to 300 eggs a year. They're excellent cold weather birds, which means they have the down and the bulk to keep themselves warm. They lay a nice light brown egg. They can lay eggs within about 6 months. So if you get them in, April, by September, October, they're laying eggs for you. They have a docile temperament, which is nice. I don't need any fighting. Um, I'm going to talk more about chicks later. So I'll talk about what you need to do to have we'll talk about it, let's say in April when I get my chicks. You can meet my chickies.
They will be introduced to the world. They will have a grand premiere,
Hmm.
Anne's Chickens for 2024. It's gonna be
Exactly.
awesome.
Chicky chicks.
All right. So in terms of gardening books, like I said, you are I would say you're basically a self-taught gardener. Uh, so talk about your excellent books.
My grandma was a big gardener. My grandma brothers was a big gardener. So, and then Jenny and I were both in 4-H. I don't know if anybody knows that, but Jenny and I were both in 4-H, and so we both took gardening and 4-H. If you buy no other books, get the Vegetable Gardener's Bible. Basically, it has detailed every single vegetable, what when you need to start, what the seeds look like, what it needs throughout its growing season, what it will look like once it's grown and ready to be picked, how to pick it. It's ABCD. It is, if you have no experience, you need this book, especially if you're growing something for the first time. The Urban Homestead is hilarious, especially if you live in a town. Even if you just live in town, you don't have to live in a big city. You just live in town and you want to have a garden bed. This book is funny. It gives you some great ideas. This is where I came up with the cinder blocks, was through this book. And then here's some fun books, really interesting. Buffalo Bird Woman's Garden. This is an oral history based on a Native woman from North Dakota and what her garden was like. And she grew. This was a very common thing in North Dakota, was the Hidatsa shield figure beans, which are the beans that I grow. They're a super easy bean to grow. They're very beautiful. They're very delicious. And man, you don't got to do nothing. You put the bean in the ground, it grows. In September, you pick it when it's all dried out. It is amaze balls, Jenny Brothers. I love that
I
bean.
want that bean. That's the
Exactly.
bean these are the beans we've been looking for. These are the beans.
Exactly. These are the beans. So if you want some magical freaking beans, Hidatsa
Well, it's funny
Shield
because
figure beans.
one of the things I was teaching environmental science last year and the year before, and that's one of the things that I actually do a unit on. My final project is a zombie apocalypse project. So before that, we do a unit on just growing seasons. I think, if you're going to have an environmental science class, I think it's really interesting to talk about, how you can, why it's important to take care of your environment, because it's the thing that's going to save you from the zombie apocalypse. So, and that's one of the things that the kids have to do is they have to plan a garden based on the nutritional needs that they're going to have to meet. And so, you know, one of the things I tell the students is that, if whatever you plant, beans should be part of it.
I was like, beans, squash, corn, beans,
Yeah,
squash, corn, bean. Whenever
yeah.
I see a show like that's, a zombie show or some sort of earth apocalypse, like, oh, we have a garden and they're growing tomatoes. I want to smack everybody in their stupid face. I'm like, beans, corn, squash, beans, corn, squash. Speaking of which, Braiding Sweetgrass just came out a last couple of years. It's been a big bestseller. Uh, the Three Sisters, she talks about beans, corns, and squash. Actually, they do in Buffalo Bird Women's Garden beans, corn, squash. You want to
It
keep
basically
yourself alive.
sustained, it literally sustained an entire hemisphere for a really long time.
Yeah, and not just sustains a hemisphere, but I mean, allowed
Great
a whole,
civilization, an
yeah,
entire
great
great civilization
civilization.
to emerge,
Yeah, exactly. So this
for
is
an entire
yeah.
hemisphere.
Mhm. Yeah. So these are
Yeah.
4 books that I would recommend. If you only do the one, do the Vegetable Gardener's Bible.
Okay. There you go. Ann Brothers is excellent books. And if you've never had a chance to see Ann Brothers' gardens, this girl knows what she's talking about. She knows her business. So there you go. All right, we have come to the end of Ann Brothers' uh 2024 garden talk, but like she said, there is work to be done. This is only the beginning of
Mhm.
your gardening journey. So that's
It
awesome.
is. It is.
Yeah,
So,
that's fantastic.
mhm.
So here we are. We are getting towards the end. It's how we doing on time?
We're doing great, Jenny. We still
Uh,
have 4 minutes left.
well then let's talk about our sneak peek at next week. That's right, you guys. Join us next Sunday because it's crappy movie month, you guys. So historically with Hollywood, January is the month that you release your shittiest movies. So in honor of this being January, honor of it being a terrible movie month, Ann and I are going to give you our favorite worst movies, or otherwise known as guilty pleasure movies. So I've put a couple of previews of the original Roadhouse, not this dribble that they're releasing with Jake Gyllenhaal this year. Can't
Ugh,
even. And then of course there's Twister, which is the greatest Earth Science walkout of all of the greatest Earth Science walkout movies. Twister is the best one. So,
mhm.
so that's what we're talking about next week. We're just going to talk about the crappy movies. There's a couple of crappy ones out there right now that you and I have talked about going to see. The first is Night Swim, which is about the haunted pool, which is like just don't get in the pool.
Pool. I was like, stop swimming in the pool. Weird things happen to me whenever I get in the pool. Dude, don't see that's why we can't be heroes in a horror movie, Jenny. We'd be like, oh, that place is haunted. We're not going there.
Go in there. Don't get in
Don't
that
go,
pool.
don't get in that pool. Get out of that pool.
Get out of the haunted pool, dummy.
Exactly.
I'm gonna sit out
Ugh.
here and drink my daiquiri out, outside the haunted pool. So yeah, you're right. It's like the shortest horror movies ever. I'm like, there you go. So yeah, so Guilty it is essentially bad movie week next week. There's so many to choose from. The other one right now that I'm hearing good things about, I've heard it described as terribly watchable, is The Beekeeper. I almost feel like we should go see The Beekeeper, but I don't even know I'm gonna have 5 minutes to do that. God, I wish they would stream movies and put them all in the theater at the very same time. That way I wouldn't have to go to the movies to see something like The Beekeeper. And frankly, I don't want to spend $12 on The Beekeeper, even though it's Jason Statham and I love him.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to spend
Statham.
$12 with Jason Statham. I'm sure he's amazing.
Now I would spend 6, but not 12. So
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
that's right. So anyway, that's next week. Just a couple of quick reminders. In this new year, you can support the Brothers Sisters for free. All you got to do is like us, follow us, subscribe us on Facebook, Spotify, Instagram, the YouTube. Tell your people, we need likes, we need bell things, we need subscribers. So yeah, there you go.
Hmm.
Help us do stuff.
It'll be awesome. You won't be
It will
disappointed.
be awesome. You won't be disappointed. Your friends won't be disappointed. And if you are disappointed, it's mild disappointment. It's like, there's like disappointment cliffs. You're not falling off a disappointment cliff. You're just kind of like, oh, there you go.
Oh,
It's like a little hill. No big deal. It's a tiny valley. It's fine.
Exactly. But you won't be
So
disappointed. You'll be
no,
thrilled.
that's right. So anyway, we were happy to be here to take you through Anne's Garden to discuss
Mhm.
our favorite cartoons and who, of course, talk about football because the Lions are going to the NFC Championship game. This was the last home game for Detroit, though. They have to go to San Francisco. San Francisco was the number one seed, so um, I don't know what
Mm.
time the game is. So yeah, we will be here next Sunday. I don't know what time we'll be here because we were pushing it today because the Lions got the early game. So anyway, you guys, thank you for joining us. I'm gonna bring our banner up, our brand up behind us here. There it is. I'm gonna get which one should I do? Let's do the hmm which music? Oh, let's do this one. That's right. We got
Wow,
the
we have
rock anthem.
it is a rock anthem. Man, I feel like I need to get on Duncan's shoulders and throw my bra onto the stage. Oh, there's Duncan. He's making
There's Duncan right now.
dough.
Hey Duncan, is that pizza dough in your hand, or are you just happy to? That didn't.
Well, you think this
ew.
looks like this looks like something healthy?
Don't.
All right. I am Janice Brothers. This is my sister.
And brothers.
That's right, you guys. Have a great week. Thanks for joining us. Peace and out.
Bye.